almost $1 billion short. And that's real money. And how are we going to pay for phase 2 just to get it up to 125th Street with a current price tag of $1.7 billion? Nobody knows the answer to that. Let me point out that the 2nd Avenue subway isn't the only transit project of this kind, with this kind of sad history, not by a long shot. How many people know, for example, that the number 7 line, which now ends at Main Street in Flushing, was originally supposed to run all the way to Bayside and Whitestone? Or that there have been plans to run a subway line to Southeast Queens since Moses was a boy. And I don't mean Robert Moses, I mean Moses Moses. And let's not leave out Brooklyn as part of this story. Did you know that the number 2 subway that today ends at Flatbush Avenue was actually supposed to keep going all the way to Marine Park? Time and again, politicians have been willing to put these and other important projects on the chopping block, saying that we, quote, just can't afford them. Well, as part of Plan YC, we're developing a solution for making sure the vital projects we need actually do get built, because we can't afford not to build them, not with the population of our city and our region rising so rapidly, and not with our transportation system already strained to the breaking point. No, I think it's fair to say the time for delay is over and the time for action is now. Because here are the facts. Of the nation's 25 metropolitan area counties with the worst commuting times, we have the dubious distinction of having 13 of them in or around New York City. And the longest are these 4: Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. And in our city, 11 of our 36 subway routes already experience peak period congestion, and 3 of them are at capacity, the routes in red. And I've said that I've been in that red a few times myself, actually. Although I will say this morning, the subway on the west side worked fine. So congratulations, I have no complaints whatsoever. What's more, Lee, I must show you this. I'm very proud of this. I have my senior citizens Metro card. Only cost $1, and which is my annual salary, so it's a very big deal. I'm zipping through. Now, the full price tag of this region-wide congestion in wasted fuel, lost business revenue, increased operating costs, and decreased productivity is estimated to come to some $13 billion annually. So when you're talking about making an investment of a few $1 billion versus a savings or cost of $13 billion annually, it's clear that we just have to have the political courage to stand up and do what's right. Conditions are bad enough now, but if we don't act, just think what they're going to be like by 2030. By 2030, the situation really will be intolerable. You have to look at all the red on this chart, and by 2030, we expect nearly every subway route, 23 of 26 of them, will be heavily congested, and our highways will be clogged as well. The bottom line, morning and evening rush hours may well consume half of each working day. Business deliveries will grind to a halt. Short term, until new and tougher standards go in effect, automobile exhaust, which today accounts for more than 50% of air pollution, will only get dramatically worse. Just think of the damage to our economy, our environment, and our health. New Yorkers already breathe sootier air than the residents of all but one other major American city. And earlier this week, the American Lung Association delivered the somber news that our air quality is actually getting worse. Children in the South Bronx and other communities already are hospitalized for asthma at 4 times the national rate. This is a slow-motion public health and environmental disaster. And in the face of it, how in good conscience can anyone maintain that doing nothing is an option? I think it's fair to say the time for denial is over. The time for action is now. We are going to need Albany's help. I will campaign there. I would ask all of you to do the same thing. And when somebody says they've got a reason why not, maybe you want to bring up some of the kids and say, look, these kids are breathing this air. These kids are going to the hospital 4 times the national average. I'm breathing this air. It took me 45 minutes to get through the tunnel this morning if I come from New Jersey, or across the bridge if I come from Queens or from Brooklyn. You know what a commute from Staten Island is like in this day and age? The time to do something is today. As part of Plan YC, we have taken a comprehensive look at the challenge of keeping New York moving forward. We have come up with a broad range of initiatives, and they range from dramatically increasing ferry service to completing our 1,800-mile bike master plan. Paul Critchlow will be happy with that since he rides his bike every day, as does Dan Doctoroff. Last time I bought a bike, I got nothing but criticized for it. I'm the only one that has ever bought a bike that had all of the required apparatus, a horn, a bell, a changing table on the back. I paid sales tax, and when I got done, it was a $400, $500 bike, and the press went crazy. Why didn't I buy a cheaper bike? I might point out that John Kerry had a $4,000 racing bike, and he never got any criticism whatsoever, which really hurt. Implementing smarter, more efficient traffic management and enforcement by, for example, putting more enforcement agents in the street and increasing our use of red light cameras are part of the plan. Albany refuses to let us put red light cameras at most street corners. People are getting killed all the time. And you'd sit there and you shake your head and you say, why would they object to this? Well, it's a complicated political reason that has nothing to do with New York City. But the reason that the legislature doesn't do what we want is we haven't gone to them and say, you give us what we need or else. And that's what drives legislators. We have a program where we've got a whole bunch of business people. I'll take another card out. We have a program where we give people this card. It says I've been a member since '06. It's the second year we've done it. It says don't leave home without it. And it lists the city's priorities for Washington on the back of it. And what we've tried to do is to say to people in New York City, when people from around the country come here to raise money for their campaigns, which is the only place they go because this is where the money is, or it's the primary place they go, we say, look, we hear what you want. Now, here's what we want. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. And there's nothing wrong with doing that in Albany. We are the economic engine of the state, and we're the economic engine of an awful lot of campaigns, political campaigns from statewide and in small districts throughout the state. And if we don't get what we want, we have the ability, have the power in our hands to change that, and that's exactly what we should do. The heart of our transportation plan is a proposed 3-year pilot program to reduce traffic on the streets of Manhattan below 86th Street through congestion pricing, as you know. The RPA has long advocated just such an experiment with congestion pricing. And in preparing our own proposal, we took a close look at the RPA's trailblazing 2003 report on this issue, as well as looking at congestion pricing experiences of Stockholm and Singapore and London. What we concluded was that congestion pricing would reduce auto traffic south of 86th Street by more than 6%, and auto speeds would increase by about 7%. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but a 7% increase in travel speeds would make every day feel like one of those midsummer days when the traffic flow really has declined because so many people are away on vacation. Now, over the past 2 weeks, we have all heard the concerns about whether everyone is being treated fairly by this plan. So let me devote 1 New York minute, make that 2, to giving you 5 reasons why congestion pricing will benefit people in all 5 boroughs and throughout the entire region. First, congestion pricing will equalize, not add to costs for many commuters. Whether you drive, for example, from 96th Street in Manhattan or 96th Street in Flushing, you'll pay the same charge. Second, today, residents in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens are clogged by drivers who are going out of their way to avoid tolls. Congestion pricing will end that. And with charges at all entry points equalized, there will be less temptation to turn the Williamsburg Bridge, for example, into the permanent parking lot it now regularly becomes at rush hour. Third, as Crane's New York Business reported earlier this week, contractors and commercial drivers now lose hours each day sitting in gridlocked Manhattan traffic. Congestion pricing will increase their productivity and their profits. Fourth, Today, cars and trucks on their way into Manhattan clog Flatbush Avenue in downtown Brooklyn and Queens Boulevard in Long Island City, making up nearly half the traffic on those two major